Thank you. I'm coming to you from the Blue Mountains. I mean, I came from the Blue Mountains this morning. And it's lovely to be here. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I'd like to talk a little bit about bringing some food production to our towns and cities. It was so brilliant listening to the previous speaker talk about regenerative agriculture in high schools, because it is something that we're really passionate about too, is working with high schools around the place. Now, I run a social enterprise, as John said, called Farm It Forward, and it's a not-for-profit incorporated association that fosters community well-being by linking up people who are in categories who are at risk of social isolation in the mountains with young people who are really passionate about growing food regeneratively. So how does this work? Before we started, we did a lot of research and approached our council to find out who in the Blue Mountains is most at risk of social isolation. Social isolation is a big issue in and around our towns and cities. Yes, people are close in proximity, but you can be close in proximity and yet feel extremely lonely, and even perceived loneliness counts as social isolation. And we'll talk a little bit about the data around that in a minute. So as you can see here, this is one of our land hosts, Sylvia. She's 78 years old, and she was one of the first residents who put forward her unused land. So she had an old tennis court from 1901, back when people used to dismantle termite mounds and use the clay and the sand and rammed it down on the ground to make tennis courts. And so the area, you can get an idea, if you've seen a tennis court, of the size of our plots. We have 8 different plots that are about tennis court sized. So altogether, just between half an acre and an acre of land under regenerative vegetable production. Now, you can see in this photo Jack, who was one of our paid young people. So we have 4 paid young people on our team. We're really, really passionate about employing young people in the Blue Mountains, because employment for young people is an issue in the Blue Mountains. It's really hard to keep young people around because there's a huge lack of meaningful employment. There's plenty of hospitality jobs and tourism jobs, but often it's not where their heart is, and they really want meaningful work often to complement their hospitality jobs and to remain active and feel like they're really contributing to regenerating land and country, etc. So you can see Jack here. This photo was taken during the 2019-2020 bushfires. They were absolutely disastrous in the Blue Mountains. It was an absolute crisis. People were really extremely affected in the Blue Mountains community across the board. And yet young people and people from all over the community came weekly to help us on our market gardening plots. Despite the terrible air quality, despite the anxiety, et cetera, we found that a lot of fire and rescue staff and a lot of RFS, members of the RFS were coming to help us on our market gardens, because seeing green was providing therapy for them and allowing them to regroup and continue going to fight fires. So it was really, really important for them to have that possibility of being with their community and seeing green, seeing healthy soil was regenerative for them as well. Okay, so why do we do this? Why is social isolation such an important thing? We often say, or we often think social isolation only impacts our mental health. It's really negative. It has a really negative effect on our mental health. But it turns out that a survey of 148 medical studies involving 300,000 participants, found very conclusively that social isolation and perceived loneliness increases by half your likelihood of premature death by, premature death by cardiovascular disease or heart attack. So it's really important to know that social isolation also impacts our physical health, not just our mental health, because of course everything is connected. Our mental health affects our physical health affects our mental health, and so on. So it's really important. It's consistent. This evidence is actually really consistent. It's not just for older people, it's not just for younger people, it's across the board. It completely does not depend on gender or age or all other factors. So it's important to know. Okay, so as I mentioned before, what kind of area are we growing on? We grow on 8 different plots. 6 of them are in close proximity to each other, and then 2 are further up in basically the largest town in the Blue Mountains, which is Katoomba. And one of our plots in Katoomba is rather large, and it's right in the middle of town. So, we had the Blue Mountains Food Co-op, which is the largest and oldest food co-op in Australia, have basically approached us a couple of years ago and basically subcontracted us to run a market gardening plot right in the middle of town, growing for them. So growing vegetables for the Blue Mountains Food Co-op. Lovely partnership between our not-for-profit and a local co-op, which was really, really exciting. So of course, yes, land area is a thing. We're not talking about urban farming in the middle of a city at this point. We're really focusing on suburban, peri-urban, semi-rural environments, because there is a lot of unused land, and it is really, really possible to regenerate all of that unused land to get better soil, water holding capacity in soils, and to get better carbon capture as well in soils. And healthy people, healthier people. All right, so this is Sylvia again, and she's holding a bunch of garlic, because everybody gets garlic, a bunch of garlic for Christmas, all of our residents. So the way this works is that our residents, who are often, so the 3 categories that are most at risk of social isolation in the mountains are retired people over 65, young families with small children, yes, and LGBTIQ plus families and people, right? So we're really careful with our residents, or land hosts, as we like to call them. They are all in these, they all are in one of those categories who are at risk of social isolation. We don't tend to take on plots that are owned by perfectly well people who are completely physically fit and able to actually be growing their own market garden in their backyards, yes? This is an enterprise where we've really worked on this idea of symbiotic relationships between people, where the arrangement is mutually beneficial. It's good for the young people to be growing food and to have contact with the older people. It's good with older people to grow food and have contact with the younger people. What the residents get in return for their use of their land is their weekly needs in vegetables each week. So their vegetable shopping is done. That's it. They get all of their vegetables from us each week. And so there's no money exchanging hands. It's a swap system where it's absolutely just a joy for, Sylvia says that she loves, it's like the Easter show, coming to get her vegetables each week, because she loves looking at what we've grown, not only on her plot, but on all the other plots that are part of the program. And it's a really special opportunity like this. So here's a couple of other residents or land hosts, Kit and Emily, and their lovely doggos. So they're wonderful. And again, we have a market garden on their property. And this is Ian, retired school teacher. So really interestingly, and this is something that we're really interested in, all of our land hosts are either present or retired school teachers, nurses, disability support workers, all carers, people who have spent their entire lives caring for others, often spent their entire lives caring for others, and then once they retire, society seems to forget about them. And they kind of lose this sense of purpose and meaning and go, well, you know, what am I going to do now? How do I contribute? How do I continue caring? Because they are carers at heart and they want to continue doing that. So it's really a way of re-including and giving back to those people who have done so much to care for us, and keeping them connected to their community. And it's a really important aspect. So yes, Ian is a retired school teacher. Kit and Emily are both school teachers. Sylvia, all of these people are all palliative care nurses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So really important, really interesting to notice that. Okay, so this is our team. So Hannah. Hannah's actually from Armidale, not very far away from here. She started with us 3.5 years ago. So it's important to note that we've been operating for 4.5 years now, and we've gone right through disastrous bushfires. Actually, no, we started in the drought, yes, then the bushfires, and this is, you know, across the board for all the regenerative farmers. You would all understand bushfires, and then drought, and then COVID, COVID 1, COVID 2, COVID 3, now the cost of living crisis. Yeah? So this is affecting our communities in a huge way in the Blue Mountains. And yeah, so Hannah's been through all of that with us, and she's 25 years old, so she started when she was 21. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see. We have a team of 4 to 5 paid young people who learn. It's basically it's an important employment pathway for young people, to get young people really passionate about growing vegetables regeneratively using regenerative methods. And they all of the young people who have been through this enterprise have gone on to working either managing local food co-ops or local food systems, or regenerative market gardening in and around the Blue Mountains. So it's a really wonderful way to get young people really excited about getting into farming. Yes, so Hannah and more of our team, so Mitch and Elle, and they're wearing our t-shirts, and it's really lovely like that. It's just wonderful. It's wonderful to see that, first of all, the young people that work with us tend to stay for quite a long time. We do see that there is this trend for 20 to 25-year-olds to kind of jump around and not stick around for very long in places. And it's lovely to see that there is actually something we're providing them with something that makes them stay over the long period and makes them really passionate about being a part of what we do, which is really lovely. Okay, so Jude and Alex, these two have done. Jude is actually due to do his work experience with us. He's from the local Katoomba High School, and Alex was coming from a Sydney high school, and he did his work experience with us as well. So it's really lovely to be able to provide that to young people who are really interested in learning about growing vegetables and market gardening, and providing that kind of stepping stone into that world. Jude, you might have seen him on Gardening Australia, because he actually landed a job as a guest presenter on Gardening Australia after he was volunteering with us for many, many, many years. So Jude, who is now in year 10, started with us when he was in year 7. Yes. He broke his foot and he couldn't move, and he was binge watching Gardening Australia. He saw the story about Farm It Forward on Gardening Australia and said, oh my gosh, that's in the Blue Mountains. And he got his mum to get in touch with us, and ever since he's been coming every single week after school. 3:15, he's there. He's, you know, with us doing all sorts of things, you know, moving compost, planting new seedlings, harvesting veggies, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really special thing to see because you really follow the local high school kids and their journey. I hope we haven't lost a farmer and gained a TV presenter though. We'll see, because he's pretty good at it. So yes, that's Jude. Actually, this is Jude again. This is Jude when he first started, year 7, yes. And this photo is really just to show you, this is one of our volunteer sessions. We hold volunteer sessions where people from the community, anyone from the community can come and help us on one of our plots each week, on the same day, at the same time each week, on a different plot. And we must be doing something right, because people, 4.5 years in, we still get 10 to 15 people come to our volunteer sessions each week, which is really something. So, you know, it's a way to connect. It's a way for people who might have special needs and might have trouble making eye contact, but they're really happy to talk and weed at the same time next to someone and have a chat and get that social connection in this way. It's really important to provide all of these different ways of being social. And you can see there's this really special thing happening where people from very different age groups come to our volunteer sessions. So we have older retired women, older retired men, university students who need a break from being in front of the computer all day, high school students coming after school. So it's that intergenerational connection that happens through the growing of local food that just makes something quite magical unravel. And then people keep coming back and coming back. So it's something's happening here. There's something quite special about it. Here's another photo of one of our volunteer sessions, and you can see little Jimmy. He's 4, and Mitch is 25, and back there was a retired man who was a retired landscaper who came to help us. Sometimes we get the local postie come and help us at our volunteer session. So it's just that really lovely thing of, okay, this is happening, it's a regular event each week, and I want to be a part of it. And then there's Jimmy's mum, and so lots of different ages, lots of different connections made between different age groups, which is just so important because it's very difficult to find. We tend to silo our approach to health and to mental health as well. Oh, yep, let's put the older people over here, let's put the younger people over there. And it's really important that we start to have avenues to reconnect those people to each other, because they have so much to learn from each other and to gain from each other as well. So it's that really special thing. Again, another volunteer session where it's always very child friendly as well. We make sure that we keep things child friendly and inclusive, and so people feel welcome, and that's probably one of the reasons why they keep coming. Yes. This was in the beginning, the photo in the beginning. This is Ella and one of our young people, one of our volunteers who came right through the bushfires. You know, the air quality was absolutely shocking, and yet people still put their P2 masks on and came to help us on our market gardens, which was quite special. So we've just recently developed another little avenue for revenue. So I mentioned just briefly before that we do sell the vegetables that we grow. We sell them direct through our farm gate system. So people pre-purchase their veggies online and come and pick them up from our main headquarters in Hazelbrook. And that's been a really great source of revenue for our not-for-profit. And it's really important in these kinds of times where things are quite unstable. You know, if we only have one source of revenue, it's quite precarious. So we tend to see how we can diversify our sources of revenue to stay resilient, to make sure that we can keep this going and for this to have longevity. So we've gone into flower growing, so cut flowers are really important. And also we've gone into making prepared meals. So we rent the local neighborhood center kitchen, which is a commercial kitchen. And one of our volunteers, Rafida, is actually she has a food safety supervisor certificate. And so we've employed her to make delicious prepared meals out of our excess veggies. And that means that people can come and buy really affordable cooked meals from us each week. And what we find is that the people who are coming to get their meals from us are disability support workers and their clients, or aged care support, at-home aged care support workers, and they're getting food for themselves and their clients. So it's really important because we're actually really feeling a need or fulfilling a need in the community. We can keep our prepared meals really affordable, as opposed to a lot of the meals that you would get in aged care facilities or at-home aged care, which are packaged in plastic and really not very nutrient dense. Whereas these are super nutrient dense, they're organically, regeneratively grown vegetables, they're packaged in sugarcane containers that are home compostable. And so it's just this brilliant thing that happens where it works for us, it works for everybody else in the community, and there's a real mutual symbiosis there. So how did we go about designing an enterprise like Farm It Forward? We didn't just come in and go, oh, this is a great idea, let's plonk it here. Something really important, and a background something that I studied a lot in my diploma of permaculture was community governance. And one of the tools for community governance that are really gaining traction now is systems thinking. So instead of going, okay, I'm gonna design this thing up here and I'm gonna plonk it right there, it's really about, okay, what are the systems that we're working with here or that we're working within? And one of the tools that you would use is this tool called the iceberg analysis. And it's called the iceberg analysis because often what you actually see at first sight is only the tip of the iceberg, right? And if you really want to address a need in the community, you need to go deeper than that. You need to allow for time to really truly observe what the needs are in the community and how your enterprise will fit within that and address those needs. So we did this a lot. We did this a lot before we even started designing the enterprise. And that's really important. So, because often we think, oh, I've got this great idea, I'm going to set up this crop swap over there. And we haven't actually found out or made sure that there's a crop swap is actually needed there, or that someone else mightn't be running a crop swap already, not too far away. So it's really important to zoom out in that sense and really observe before you design. It's really, really, really important. Let's go back. Okay, so one of the first things we did actually before we even set up a plot was we did something called a holistic management or a holistic context. And this comes from Alan Savory's holistic management framework, but it was developed a little bit further for social systems and for designing enterprises and designing community enterprises by a lovely chap called Dan Palmer in Melbourne, who's no longer with us, unfortunately. But he has a really lovely website still up. It's called holisticdecisionmaking.org, and it has a lot of tools and information about this method. So basically, you really, really develop as a team, your entire team together develop this context so that you're making sure that everybody who's on the team is on the same page about what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. And it allows us to make decisions that are really going towards the middle, this concept in the middle, rather than making band-aid decisions that are taking us away from our from our middle mission that is in the middle. Yeah, it's really important because it is easy when you're farming or when you're managing an enterprise to see a problem and come up with a band-aid solution to the problem without going, okay, zoom out, hang on, zoom out. If we do this, if we make this decision, is that going to take us further towards our context, or is it going to take us away from our context? And it's really important to maintain integrity, and that's how you get that community support, is through community knowing that you're there and that you are addressing and listening to what the community's needs are. I feel this is something that's we're not quite using yet in our community systems, but it's getting there. We're getting there. So yes, in terms of how much food we grow, we've grown 8 tons so far this year. So it's a small market gardening scale. 1 acre of vegetable production is good size. So we're not at this home gardening scale. We're more at the small to medium market gardening scale. And that means that we can actually properly put a dent in food, in the amount of vegetables that are being consumed locally and coming from further afield. And that's really brilliant. And the fact that the local co-op has really prioritized local food production over vegetables that are coming from really, really far away means that, of course, things are changing, and we're realizing that when crisis hits and our local our supply chains are all disrupted and interrupted, it's really important to have some food growing nearby. So during the bushfires, for instance, one of the roads in Hazelbrook, which is the main town where we grow, was closed. And that was one of the main street that many of our plots was in. And we had a solar-powered cool room and lots of potatoes growing there and lots of other veggies. And so we could supply that closed street with enough vegetables to manage until they open the street again. That's really important, right? Like if every suburb or if every town had this kind of food security, we would be better off and we would be happier. We'd be doing well. All right, I'm almost finished. We have monitored the health of the soil on the plots that we've been growing in using a method called RASH. I don't know if you've come across the RASH method. It stands for Rapid Assessment of Soil Health. And there's great manuals online on how to do it. You're really looking, it's quite involved, but it's not as involved as a complete soil assay, for instance. And we found that across the board, these are 4 out of our 8 plots, across the board we've seen really, really significant improvements in the health of the soil on our plots. And incredibly significant improvements in soil organic matter, which means much, much better soil water holding capacity, which is extremely important in bushfire-prone areas. So we found that our market gardens are actually acting as fire retardant buffers on the properties where we're growing. And that's really important stuff. Soil water holding capacity and carbon capture capacity. So we grow perennial vegetables and flowers all around our plots and natives so that they act as refuges for the good microbes in the soil when we're harvesting our vegetables. And the soil is healthy enough now to be fully, properly capturing carbon from the atmosphere, which is just brilliant. So this is our way. This was our way to regenerate unused land, suburban and peri-urban land, in order to, use that to create healthy food, nutrient-dense food for our community, and act as fire retardant buffers and healthy biodiversity corridors in our area. So we've formed a really good relationship with a local mushroom farm, And the way we do it is we cover the entire area with cardboard, actually. So it only takes 1 day for us to set up an entire plot. We gather all the cardboard from all the liquor stores and the places all around. We cover the whole lot with a double layer of cardboard, and then we put a bulk lot of the mushroom substrate from the mushroom farm. So mushrooms, this is my soil microbiology cap on here. So button mushrooms have this incredible soil remediation capacity, right? So they have, the substrate has had button mushrooms grown in it. The spent substrate means it's not really growing any button mushrooms anymore. The mycelium remains in the soil that they were grown in, and it's been remediated from a lot, the bulk lot of the pesticides or any herbicides, et cetera, et cetera. They've all concentrated into the fruiting bodies, which are the mushrooms. And so what we're left with is this very high fungal soil that we can use as a bulk rebooting of the system to form our beds. And then we use arborist wood mulch. So we're in touch with a lot of local arborists, and they bring us a nice big bulk load of arborist wood mulch for our paths. And that, the mushroom substrate is ready, pretty much ready to plant in, because we've aged it a little bit before we use it. And we plant directly into it. We grow some of our own heirloom seedlings and use our own worm farms. So we have 3 larger worm farms made out of IBC intermediate bulk containers. And we use that vermicompost in our seed raising mix. And that is a way to really efficiently inoculate the soil with beneficial microorganisms. That means really healthy soil, really healthy microorganism, really healthy soil life, grows happy plants. We don't use any other, we don't even use sea soil or seaweed, and nothing else. We don't need anything else to be growing really, really healthy plants. We do a lot of intercropping and grow a different crop in each row a lot of the time. And yes, that's how we do it.
You mean you grow through the cardboard?
Yes, yeah. The cardboard disintegrates within 3 weeks because yes, we use a really, really water efficient drip irrigation system to water the plants. The cardboard breaks down within a very, very short period of time, but it's suppressed the grasses. Sometimes we're growing on lawn, and so that suppressed the grasses underneath, and we're ready to go with market gardening. Yeah.